Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cadet First Class Michelle Cabanse. It is my privilege to welcome you to the class of 93 keynote featuring a cadet moderated panel with our 2024 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year representatives. Before we begin, please join me in recognizing our generous donors, the class of 93. I will now introduce our 12 OAY panelists and our cadet moderator. Please wait to join me in applause following their introduction. Master Sergeant Haley L. Callisto is a weapons director at the 225th Air Defense Squadron, Western Air Defense Sector, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington. She initiates and oversees the employment of Air Force fighters in support of Operation Noble Eagle. Callisto enlisted in the Air Force in December 2012. Her first assignment was Luke Air Force Base, Arizona, where she utilized simulation software to recreate realistic air combat tactics in support of weapons director qualification training. Her next assignment took her to Spangdahlem, Germany, where she has deployed as a weapons director for combat air operations over Iraq and the Arabian Gulf in support of Operation Inherent Resolve. Upon her return, she assisted in the European infrastructure consolidated relocation of $240 million in equipment and personnel that led to her squadron being awarded the Headquarters Air Force Ground-Based Crew of the Year. The unit relocation resulted in her new assignment to Aviano Air Base, Italy, as the Assistant Non-Commissioned Officer in charge of scheduling and development to support Operation Resolute Support, where she directed air combat operations over Afghanistan and co-managed the Weapons and Tactics Office. Prior to her current position, Callisto served as an Air Education and Training Command Weapons Director Instructor at Luke Air Force Base, Arizona. In February 2020, Callisto joined the Washington Air National Guard at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Technical Sergeant Corey Green is the non-commissioned officer in charge of future operations for the 60th Security Forces Squadron, Travis Air Force Base, California. He advises the Defense Force Commander on force protection operations supporting 3 wings, 26,000 personnel, and $18.5 billion in power projection assets. Furthermore, he oversees the tactics development process by integrating training and evaluations with mission partners to broaden the security forces capabilities for a 274-member unit. Green was born and raised in Bakersfield, California, and enlisted in the Air Force in January 2008. He graduated from the Security Forces Academy in May 2008. Since then, he has filled a variety of security forces roles and responsibilities. Green has served as an installation entry control, armor patrolman, and combat arms instructor. In 2019, Green was selected to be an instructor at the Security Forces' largest ground combat regional training center located at Fort Bliss, Texas. During this assignment, he led a flight of cadre in preparing defenders across the Security Forces enterprises for overseas contingency operations. Green was deployed 3 times in support of the global war on terror at Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar, Prince Hassan Air Base, Jordan, and Kandahar, Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, he conducted the Security Forces Tactical Security Element mission, where he led a fire team as the lead truck commander on 103 outside-the-wire missions and 32 high-value target capture operations. Before his current assignment, Green served as a flight sergeant for the Air Force Security Forces Center Detachment 3 at Fort Bliss. Technical Sergeant Joseph Mazur joined the Air Force in 2007. He worked in munition systems for 3 years, and in 2013, he cross-trained into the Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape Specialist career field. Mazur had deployed in Djibouti, Afghanistan, and Qatar, and volunteered for a year-long assignment in Qatar. Some notable recent career highlights include collaborating with Space Force and the National Reconnaissance Office to rectify a critical flaw in survival radios that affected 13 partner nations, revitalizing secure emergency satellite communication coalition-wide. Mazur coordinated personnel recovery for 4 downed aircraft across 3 combat commands, activating 15 Air Force and Navy rescue assets, culminating in the recovery of 15 personnel. He currently manages one of the largest operational SEER sections. selections in the Air Force, providing refresher training for 2,000 aircrew members. He also developed SEER specialists as personnel recovery experts for multiple deployments annually. Senior Airman Mikhailo Kormiak deployed in support of Ukraine war efforts as critical command and control liaison for the Air Domain Awareness Cell. His efforts alerted forces to 2,000 air threats and 1,500 ballistic missiles, saving 43 million lives across 24 regions. Kormiak crafted $273 million anti-missile translation guide, interpreting unmanned aerial vehicles and navigation manuals for Allied pilots, which increased jet survivability. Kormiak served as the lead linguist for the Secretary of Defense and the Ukraine Minister of Defense, ensuring global alliances. He advocated real-time Ukrainian language support, identifying hostile activity from enemy targets and enhancing the endurance of 40 aircraft. Kormiak transported 16 tons of munitions and equipment to Gila Bend Auxiliary Field, preparing 3 major commands with divert airfield and a safe haven for in-flight emergencies for 20 joint units across 5 airframes. This effort generated 23,000 sorties and 239 pilot graduates. And finally, our moderator, Cadet First Class Aiden Doherty. Please join me in applause. Cadet Doherty and panelists, the floor is now yours.
All right, thank you all for joining us today. Can we get one more big round of applause for our panel? All right, so I have a few questions for you guys. So this one's for the whole panel, but can you share a moment in your career when you had to make a critical decision under immense pressure? How did you navigate it, and what lessons did you take away from the experience? I think Sergeant Callisto has an answer.
I do. Welcome, everyone. This is awesome. I guess I'll be a little intense right out the gate. My story is from my first deployment. I was very young. I was 20 years old, and you may have heard in the bio, maybe you weren't listening, that's okay. I'm a weapons director, which is like air traffic control, but more of like controlling the combat battle space. And I was fresh out of training and immediately had to go downrange to control over southern Iraq. And what that kind of means is once air traffic control takes off the airplane, they hand them off to me. And in my control at any given time, I had like 5 frequencies with tankers and fighters all across southern Iraq and the Arabian Gulf talking to me, needing clearances and altitude, and it's my job to keep them at different altitudes from crashing into each other. It's my job to get them to the JTAC so that they can control the stack and drop the bombs on the correct targets. Sometimes, as you guys know, friendly forces come under fire and they're in a compromised situation and they need air support. That's also my job, is to coordinate getting air support to them. So again, 20 years old, only a few months out of controller school, and in the Middle East controlling 50 plus aircraft. And there was, at no point in my training did I learn how to handle a troops in contact situation. So when I'm sitting for the first day or so on shift, doing my job, we hear the alarm and we hear the calls for help. And there was a team in southern Iraq that was needing air support. And I panicked and I froze because in that moment, the reality of everything hit me and I let my emotions really just take over. And I was thinking about their families. I was thinking how many people are in that team, how many lives are already being lost, and every second counts, and where's the closest A-10, where's the closest drone, and I just froze, and I let my emotions really get the better of me. And in that moment, my team lead had to take over my radios and control the entire situation. And then afterwards, obviously I felt horrible because in those moments, every second counts. And so I really just wanted to, I know in your 4 years, 5 years at this academy, you have heroes up on stage telling you the times that they, shot down a MiG-29 or they did amazing things, but I don't know how often you guys have people come up here and tell you how in critical moments they actually failed and they didn't do the right thing and they didn't lean on protocol. So I kind of wanted to share that story with you guys because in that critical moment where I needed to make life or death decisions, I froze. And afterwards, in debrief, I had to answer for that. And that was very difficult for me to take those lickings. But the lesson I learned is sometimes you won't encounter things in training. You will have never learned about what to do in certain situations, but you're still responsible for making decisions and taking action. And all you can do is your best, and if you do fail, stand and take it, and then never let it happen again. So, thanks.
That's good.
Yeah.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Sergeant Green, Security Forces. I know you had this long intro, but you guys it was pretty long, so I had to remind everybody what it is. So when I think about critical decisions in a high-stress environment or dangerous environment, I think about my time in Kandahar. That was my combat deployment. I was pretty young. I was 24 when I was there. I was the most junior NCO, and I know it was in the bio, but I was part of Task Force Black. It was a group of security forces in OSI. I was part of the tactical security element with that. Our job was to capture or kill Taliban targeting the air base. So security forces does do more than check IDs, just so you guys know out there. So yeah, and out there, like I said, I was the most junior NCO, but I was given a very important position. I was the lead truck commander for those missions. What that means is going outside the wire, conducting convoys in Kandahar, and at the time was a pretty dangerous place. I believe so, it probably still is now. And so a lot of responsibility was put on me, and yeah, like critical decisions was like a daily part of the job. I had to second guess myself on a lot of stuff, like had that imposter syndrome, like am I really good for this? But it goes from checking for IEDs, making sure all the routes were good, use of force situations, shoot, no shoot. And it was left on a 24-year-old brand new staff sergeant. So what helped me navigate through that was my teammates, honestly. Having trust in them and knowing that they have trust in me. But for that trust, I basically became addicted with preparation. Preparation, training, getting all those reps and sets, it was probably what helped me out the most. So this may be something that I give this story because I know when you guys go in the operational world, you guys will be around that same age, and you may deploy, and then you may be in that position. Just fall in the trust of the people around you, and also fall in love with preparing for your mission, everything you can.
All right, so I have a follow-up question for Sergeant Green. How do you train security forces to be calm in dangerous situations and moments where hesitation could cost lives?
Okay, so how do we do that? Like, honestly, it's pretty simple. Reps and sets. The more times you do it, the better you will be at it, right? Train, hard, realistic training. I like to quote General Minahan, the AMC commander, just retired. He said, if you're, dang, I forgot it. I had this whole thing like prepared and everything. No, so he said, if you're comfortable with the risk you're taking, you're not taking enough risk. So don't be so risk adverse. Get that hard, realistic training while you can, while you're not overseas, while you're not in that training, or you're not in that deployed environment. So whenever you get out there, it'll be a little bit easier, and then you'll be able to make those decisions that you need to make.
All right, so I have a question for Sergeant Major. So you've worked on enhancing personnel recovery kits and training plans. How do you balance innovation with practicality when creating resources that impact lives in high-stake environments?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I think most of you were required to be here, but thank you anyhow. Part of it is that there's requirements, hard requirements for personnel recovery kits of what they can be and what they can't be. So that's the easy part, is just knowing your job and what the rules say. The other part is knowing, and a theme that I kind of hope to project throughout this, is knowing your people. And while I'm not responsible for the air crew, I'm not their boss or anything, we do personnel recovery for all 2,000 or so air crew in our wing. So it was my responsibility, it was a task given to me to revamp the personnel recovery kits that we had with a simple instruction of make it a personnel recovery kit that you would want, because the current one was not cutting the mustard. So part of that is knowing the people, and where it ties in here is understanding the different aircraft that I work with, because we have 4 or 5 different airframes at our base. And so understanding their mission sets, understanding how they operate within the aircraft, and are they going to want to carry a backpack full of junk around? No aircrew member wants to do that ever. But if I give them something too small, it's not going to be effective for them. So understanding their missions, where they sit in the aircraft, how they even think about personnel recovery, because different airframes think about it slightly differently. And so understanding all of those pieces allowed me to create a product that that kind of merged all of that into one that I think is a pretty good product. So knowing your people and being aware of it, and then following the requirements that you have.
Airman Chromiak, can you talk about the importance of cultural and linguistic skills in modern warfare and how they've shaped your impact in Ukraine operations?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the question. So when you talk about the culture, right, experiences, I believe the point when every leader says it, right, that we are all the most diverse force. We have multiple experiences. That's our strength. Comes to the play. You come to the field, you come to the mission, you're not prepared for it. You're not being trained at tech school, like, all right, you're gonna have, 17 different countries involved. You're gonna have this mission happening at any set of time, and you've been maybe for 1 year, you just have to do it. Coming in with that just task and understanding what is your leadership wants from you. That's a key point to believing you play a small role, but in a bigger picture, without that role, it's still not gonna happen. Knowing your place and engaging in capacity that you can do it. Many people were around, many different backgrounds and cultures, coming in together and figuring out, like, all right, how do we make this all work? To set up events, set up trainings, you don't have that time. You just have to deliver it. So getting that knowledge and knowing the professionals that you have in your capacity, that helps a lot for leaders. We had a situation, right, and then it's everybody in a higher leadership at strategic level, right, and then they have to bring you A1C. Like, you have to deliver this message, and then it goes to the headquarters of a partner nation. You don't have time to prepare for it, you don't have time to go and train, and you just understand, okay, their mindset, right? Each one of us have unique capabilities, unique backgrounds, and just understanding those strengths that comes with it, that's your inner power, if you're willing to come and deliver that mission. You have to be able to represent the country. At the end, we represent the United States, represent our Air Force, and knowing that what you're gonna do matters, that's, I think, the biggest impact. And culturally, don't be ashamed of your culture, because you never know, right? You coming in and you're just like, oh, like, well, I'm immigrant or this or that, and you never know. Sometimes you might be in a year called in to do the mission that the country will be relying on, and I think that's a good thing to be proud of and to foster that culture of your differences and backgrounds and just teamwork.
Thank you. So I believe that each of you have probably experienced hard times throughout your career. So how have you stayed motivated and resilient during challenging times in your career? And what advice would you offer cadets who may be facing setbacks in their journey?
I'll take it away. So I've been in for 12 years, and I know that the first couple years are very difficult for a lot of airmen. It's their first time away from home, and they're living in dorms, eating DFAC food, and maybe you guys experienced something similar in your years here, like it's not all sunshine and you don't love it every second of every day. But as the decade plus has gone on, I've come to learn that there will be times, and maybe that's 2 years at a time, where you're not really enjoying the military, you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're not in a team that you're fond of, or doing a job that you're fond of, but eventually a tasker will come that you love and you eat it up, and then maybe you go to a different unit and that unit is amazing or that location's amazing. So really it's just been an ebb and flow of good times and bad, and there were many times I wanted to separate, and then like the Air Force drops a little treat for me, and I'm like, oh, orders to Italy, I guess I'll stay in. And then it's the best time of my life. And then, you know, low time comes, high time comes, so just toughing out the highs and lows and appreciating when things are good has really helped me be resilient.
Yeah, I got something on that too. So yeah, like if I ever feeling motivated, honestly, I just look around. I'm like, and it's easy to be like, oh, I'm having a bad day, or oh, this is happening to me. I have to remind myself that I'm not special. I'm a part of something special. So I go look to my left and right and say I'm part of this team. And those teammates are the ones that are like picking me up, letting me get through it, because you're not doing it alone. Like if you sit here like I'm having a bad day, well, I'm pretty sure somebody else is having a bad day. And that's what I mean by like you're not special. Like everybody else is going through something, but you see the people to your left and your right, they're still grinding through it. That means that I can do it too. And then being part of something bigger than myself, you know, I don't think anybody joined the military to get rich, you know. So just being a part of that and being able to get all the opportunities that a lot of people don't get to get. And so yeah, I just look left and right and seeing my teammates grinding through it, meaning that I could probably do it too.
For me, it's about, on top of these things, is while it's important to show up and be good at your job and work hard in the Air Force, and that should be a priority in your life, I would also say something that's helped me out is remembering that the Air Force for me, maybe this isn't the right Air Force answer, but it's not my top priority. My faith for me personally is the top priority, my family comes second, and the Air Force comes third. That doesn't mean sometimes my family doesn't have to take a back seat for the mission, but I don't get too lost up with Air Force things, Air Force issues, because I have these other priorities in my life. For all of us that are serving, it doesn't matter if you serve 5 years or 30 years, the Air Force is finite for all of us. And so it's having something that's bigger than that for me that helps keep me motivated, even when things, when you're going through frustrating times in the Air Force, because that is going to happen. So that's it.
Yeah, I could agree a lot with Surgeon Missouri. During the deployment and times when you're far away and then you have your loved ones at home, right? And you can't be there. You missing holidays, you missing birthdays, missing important events, and being able to stay in touch, it's a struggle. Sometimes you can't even explain where you're at. You might be missing for a week or two, have to go do some stuff, and it's so important to know as a leader, as a future, right, like officer, where your team stands and what they're going through, to get to know your troops, because that's really will be biggest strength. If you know what your team is doing, like you participating in their life, you invested in them, they're gonna give it back to you. And I'm sure we all had like similar experiences that there are great leaders and there are someone that just like, you know, want to take their career off and then they disregard really their unit and then the output is really not there. But then there is somebody who is invested in you, who is like, okay, what are we doing? Like coming in, checking at your work, checking with the shops, and then really trying to incorporate themselves and show that they're a part of the team as a leader. That motivates a lot, and your team will really, really succeed. And you will succeed with your team.
Thank you, guys. Sergeant Callisto, you've been an advocate for mental health as a crisis counselor. How do you see mental resiliency fitting into the warrior ethos?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm not a crisis counselor in the military in any capacity. I'm a volunteer crisis counselor for youth, for homicidal and suicidal youth, or just youth in crisis or needing resources like housing. So I did a ton of background checks and a ton of training to learn how to de-escalate, you know that word, homicidal and suicidal youth. And I took a lot of those skills from that training and have applied it to airmen that are also in crisis or just needing some guidance. And so I took some time to reflect on this. I had this question prepared last night, so I spent some time thinking on it, how I would tie the lessons of crisis counseling into warrior ethos. And really what I came up with was like mental awareness and emotional regulation skills and knowing your bounds or limits of what you can do to help yourself, and when you've reached those limits and now need to seek outside help, all of those skills that you learn in as you age and mature and learn regulation skills, they all feed into mental readiness, and all of that feeds into warrior ethos. So it's kind of a simple answer, but just really as you grow and learn and mature, learn how to regulate your own emotions in high stress and low stress environments when you're tired, hungry, frustrated, lonely, and how you respond and react to other people and stimuli in those situations. Mental readiness.
Thank you. Each of you have worked with multidisciplinary teams or partner nations. What strategies have you found most effective for fostering teamwork and collaboration across these diverse groups?
For me, I've worked with multinational forces, with other branches of the government, with other services. And to me, it's really about learning to understand their perspective on things. You can try to force your way of thinking on them, but if you instead can take a step back and understand how the Army thinks about personnel recovery, which is very different than the Air Force, because they have a completely different construct, or how the Navy does it, et cetera. Same with partner forces, Department of State. Everyone has a slightly different point of view, and rather than try to force the Air Force's view on them, for instance, of how to do personnel recovery, trying to understand where they're coming from and how they can fit into the picture overall has been effective. So being open to understanding the other organizations that you're working with, other individuals you're working with, and trying to understand their background and where they're coming from. There's usually a reason that they think about things a certain way. That's really helped facilitate those relationships. And when you have relationships with the people you're working with, things happen a lot easier than if you're just trying to force your opinion or your way of thinking on them.
I can add from the international perspective, we had an exercise to do, and you have 10 different countries. How do you incorporate everybody? Between our own branches, we have like so many differences, and now you have bringing another 9 countries in. Lithuania does one thing, France does another thing, UK does third thing. We're completely different mindset having. Before we even did the whole exercise, right, for a week, the first day we spent was each country represented for 2 hours how they do things. We try to understand, we ask questions, so we're trying to find these common points, like what does unite us, what we have differences, and so then we can build off of that. Because if you're just gonna start like, all right, we're doing this in United States Air Force, and like this is how we're gonna do it, it's not gonna work. Everybody's gonna be like, well, you might be thinking like that, but it's not gonna work here like this. So having these conversations, having these trainings, trying to understand different perspectives, it's been very huge part of the successful exercise. And honestly, just in an evening, don't just like go away. We got together all for a dinner. It's awesome, it's fun, right? You have like different 10 countries, we go in different cuisines to try, but this builds this camaraderie and this team that later on, they send the messages and all the different invitations from their leadership, their country leadership. Hey, we need this team, we need these people because they deliver it. They provided something unique for us. They want to stand with us. They want to learn from us. And that shapes how other countries perceive you. It strengthens these partnerships, and it just makes it better for us as United States Air Force, and Space Force was during that mission, and the same for the whole NATO joint operation.
Sergeant Green, you spent time with Georgian and Afghan forces throughout your deployments. Can you please talk about that?
Say again?
The Georgian and Afghan forces.
Yes. So yeah, I spent some time with Georgian and Afghan and Canadians and Kandaharos, definitely multi forces over there. And the problem, probably the biggest one we had was we're doing a transition period. It was in 2014. We weren't supposed to be the ones leading anything. We're transitioning over to the Afghani National Police. So working with them was a little different because obviously tactically we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but we still had to get them involved with it. So making sure that we do the missions, making sure that we're doing them together, and also making sure that they don't have a green on blue event where basically the Afghanis would shoot us. So those were kind of the biggest dilemmas that we had dealing with that part of it. So we just have a guardian angel, someone always watching them. So working as your partner, but at the same time trying to defend yourself, because you never know what's going to happen with working with the force with that background that we had with them.
All right, thank you. All right, so for the whole panel, if you could give one piece of advice to cadets as future leaders in the Air Force, what would it be and why?
For me, it's going back to what I already said, is care about your people, get to know them, and actually care about them. I think everything else that demonstrates good leadership comes from actually caring about your people. If you stop caring about your people, your existence in the Air Force becomes about you. It becomes very selfish, and you need your people to get the mission done. So when something exciting happens for them, be excited for them. Be willing to do the work that none of us like, writing awards or doing the paperwork to recognize your people who are doing well. Trying to set them up for positions or PCSs or whatever it is, because they're the right person for the role. If you can care about your people and take care of them, I truly believe all the other leadership qualities come out of that, of caring about them.
My advice would be, don't call security forces SecFo. I know you guys do that a lot. I'm just kidding. No, I only bring that up because I heard it a lot, and I was like, yeah, we don't say that like real world. But no, as it relates to leadership, exactly, like you have to care. What I say within my world is, it's all about gas. You have to give a shit. Like, and people will look past that and look at you, that you're only here for yourself. It's all about the team. Another thing would be, holding people accountable is important. But if that's the first time you're speaking to that person, you're probably going to have a negative connotation associated to your name. So get to know them first. Speak to them 20 times so that one time you have to correct that individual, they know that you're coming from a place of caring. But every time you speak to them, it's you correcting them. You're probably going to be looked at pretty bad in your unit. So take that time. What did Big Sean say? It's simple, but it ain't easy. That's what leadership is. It's simple, but it ain't easy. You're going to have to devote that effort and really get after it and get to know your people. And I promise you, you take care of them, they're going to take care of you.
Also, in my experience, many senior leaders from enlisted side, that will be your best mentors. If you can, find, you see like Sergeant Green, Sergeant Mazur, Sergeant Callisto, right? You, as a young officer, you coming out and you have people like this in your caliber, right? Like stick with them, learn from them, because they are subject matter experts. And each squadron will have, each flag will have their different one leads. Don't be afraid to ask for their advice, but also don't be like, okay, it's not my job, I'll be in the office, I'll be just leading from that side. The best leaders we had were the ones that actually went and engaged with the team, ask for that experience. They're going to be the ones that take care of you, and you need that time and experience, like 2-3 years, to build that competence and get that knowledge and understanding what really you're supposed to do, because you're not going to get every answer after the academy. You will come in and it's going to be a completely different world. So just stick to senior enlisted leaders in the beginning. I think that would be the best advice.
So I'll tell a little story. In 2023, I tried to commission, and I had some people tell me that I had it in the bag. And this was after 10 years of being told, like, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing. And then me asking, well, is there anything specific I can improve on? No, keep doing what you're doing. So I was, I thought I was pretty up there. And then getting that feedback when I didn't get selected really stung. It was some sharp feedback, and it was like personality based. It was how I interacted with people. It was how I spoke about myself, and my mentality was pretty negative, and how that kind of affected the crew that I was working on. It made some people not want to work with me, and that hurt a lot. But I had a crossroads of it hurt so bad that I don't want to change, and I wanted to be grumpy about it and blame everyone else, or I wanted to take ownership and accountability and change in order to achieve my dream, which was to be selected to commission. And so I chose that path, and I sought further feedback from everyone, people below me, people above me, people from previous units that I had worked with that I still was in contact with. And so my advice is to seek feedback and have just an insatiable thirst for learning and growth, because 2 years ago I didn't get selected to commission, and the feedback I said was harsh, and I was not on a trajectory to be on this stage or to make master my first time or to get selected to commission the second time. But I took that feedback, and I'm a completely different person with a completely different outlook on life, and my views on leadership are completely different. So I would say, like, for my life and my career, taking that hard feedback, owning it, and changing is what I implore all of you guys to do when the situation presents itself.
All right. The last question I have for you all is, when you reflect on your career, what impact do you hope to leave behind for the Air Force and future airmen?
Mine goes back to my people, right? I hope that I have a positive impact on my people, both in developing them professionally as SEER specialists, but also that they can look back and know that all the work that I was doing was to help take care of them, even when sometimes it's giving feedback. Like Sergeant Green said, if you truly care about someone, you want them to be better, and so you have to hold them to a standard. So overall for me, it's that my people felt taken care of when I was in charge of them.
Yeah, I would say my legacy is honestly the people. I'm a 17-year tech sergeant. Obviously, I wasn't out here chasing promotion. I'm a little crusty tech sergeant right now. Well, me and him both. We're old crusties. But yeah, it's always been about the people for me. That's where my heart's been. I've always said it. I don't care about the stripes, but I care about who's going to be at my retirement ceremony. I hope all those people that I've impacted are going to be there. And also, a little piece of advice too, or I'll just share a little story. I got a text message one time. I was changing flights, and in the text message it said, "Hey, Sergeant Green, I just want you to let you know, I really appreciate you being our flight chief, and whenever I become a tech sergeant, I want to be just like you." And yeah, I was honestly, that shook me. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to act, because at the time I just saw myself as a flight chief. I just saw myself as a tech sergeant. I just saw myself as a leader, but in reality, I'm not just that. I'm also a role model. And I never looked at it that way until I saw that text message. And so yeah, at the end of this all, I hope that I've been a good role model for a lot of people, that other people want to emulate the good qualities. Don't emulate the bad ones. There's a lot out there, but seeing those good qualities and want to be just like that, that alone, I'm good. I don't need the stripes. I don't need the accolades. I don't need this OAY stuff. Knowing that these people that I've impacted their life positively, it's my real legacy.
It's only been 4 years, right, since I've been in, so there is still more to come, hopefully, and achieve. But so far, what can I affect at this moment, right, is my peers airmen. And just that's been the biggest thing, to work with everybody, right? They coming in from tech school. Nobody knows what to do, where to go, right? Just kind of take care, set examples, and show them the opportunities that they have. Hey, you can do this separate program. Do you have a knowledge? Or you coming in from another country, have you thought about LEAP? Do you know that there is different opportunities, what else you can do? Because very often people coming in, and we had that example at our shop, 3 new airmen came in, and they're like, we didn't want this job. So how do you even start from there talking? And it was okay, what do you want? And at my level, it's easier because I'm not their supervisor yet, so they can just tell me whatever it is, right? All their crap they don't care, or what they actually want to do. And so you just go for it and explain, hey, I've been in that situation, I've done it, I want to tell you there are some different opportunities. Maybe first 2 years, 3 years will be tough, but it's not always will like that. And find those internal motivations, have that conversation, have that feedback, and maybe as a young leader, right, you will be able to emphasize it to your enlisted side troops and just say, hey, staff sergeants, senior airmen, I want to get a feedback. Please do reach out to younger airmen because they're your next bone and next step, and who's going to protect you, who's going to deliver the mission. So if you don't keep them happy and at least engaged, maybe they have an issue with the dorm. Maybe their AC doesn't work and they don't really care. You're talking to them about national defense strategy, but they don't have internet available or their defect is not working. So what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to explain that? And their paycheck, their pay system, they never had a paycheck before, so they don't know what to do. The money's not coming. So just be kind of at that level, get down to them and try to understand. And just from what you can impact, know that you're not going to be able to do everything. But I've heard one time a phrase from a mentor of mine, it's try to understand before being understood. And that really stuck to me. That's like, not everything will be like how I say. Like, just kind of try to take a step back and engage with them, learn about them, and then you become a trust face in their eyes, and it's going to be a game changer.
That was nice. That was good. For me, I work very hard to make the airmen around me know that I care and that they matter. Their goals matter. What's going on at home matters. Their relationships matter. They matter. And so that's very important that you guys carry that forward. But I also, as I've climbed in rank, and I'm very excited to be an officer because my favorite feeling in the world is good trouble and like causing problems on the behalf of the airmen that I'm supervising or assisting with something. And knowing that no doesn't always mean no. It sometimes means go ask someone else that's more knowledgeable about the process, or it means pull up the reg yourself and educate yourself so that you can go back into that conversation and advocate more intelligently on behalf of that airman. So the legacy I want to leave behind is really just like, wow, I'll be an officer, but then like maybe Captain Callisto, when she was in, she didn't care whether she had to stand at attention and answer for the trouble she got in. It was because she was fighting for me to go to this school that I really wanted to go to, even though I was, not qualified to go at the time. She advocated for me aggressively and had to answer up for that. So I hope that people see that I'm fearlessly an advocate for your goals and the things that you want to achieve in your career.
Panelists and Cadet Doherty, thank you for sharing your discussions with us today. At this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. Attendees can ask questions at the microphones positioned in the audience.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all. C3C Elon Bright from Cadet Squadron 2. And a very important lesson is to learn from your mistakes, but also to learn from the mistakes of others. So I was wondering if you can give any bad examples of leadership, or more specifically leadership from officers that have just been terrible, so that we may learn.
We have to tread
Okay,
lightly.
so the top example that comes to my mind is not from an officer, but it could be for any leader. Back in my ammo days, we had a very unhappy master sergeant. I don't know. I didn't talk to him. I was a senior airman, but he would come in grouchy every day and chew his people out for nothing. It actually led to him looking stupid a couple times because he attacked people on why is this thing this way, thinking that he was in the right, and then he looked stupid in the end because he was wrong. But for instance, he at the end of the day as well, he would come out of his office, and this is when the F-22s were down. I was at Holloman, and our mission was very slow. I'm talking about as an airman, I'm vacuuming cracks of sidewalks and sweeping and mopping the shop 3 times a day. And he would come out of his office at the end of the day and do an inspection and walk around, not say anything until he was done, and he said, not good enough. And then he'd go slam his door to his office and go back in. He wouldn't tell us what was wrong. He was just clearly grumpy. And so taking out your whatever frustrations are on your people is a good example of poor leadership.
I have some really horrible examples from deployment, but I think I'm going to stay safe and keep it professional. I think this is like a really simple example. Just, airmen in your shop. I worked in a scheduling shop. No one's dying. Like, it's just scheduling, building the next week's schedule for fighter activity and putting operators to those flying missions. It's nothing crazy, but it's busy, especially when you have 150 operators and, bases all over America that need scheduling. So it's busy work and stressful at times when you're trying to meet the weekly deadline. Just a poor example of officership is the OIC, not current OIC. We love Captain Smith, but previous OICs sitting at the desk playing the New York Times games on their phone and looking up and saying, "What's for lunch, guys?" And like everyone's wiping sweat from their brow trying to meet a deadline, and that officer is not in the fight helping us or trying to remove barriers that we're encountering to make our job easier. They're kind of sitting in the background waiting for lunch so they can take us out. And that was their idea of taking care of us, was taking us out to lunch. But it was a little tone deaf because we can't go to lunch until we finish this job. So, we would appreciate officers at times that get in the fight with us and remove those barriers, or just do the same job that we're doing. Let me show you how to plug in these names so we can get out of here faster.
Thank you again.
C1C Savannah Alice from Cadet Squadron 24. You guys are all incredible in your fields, and I was just wondering if there were any boundaries that you had to put in place between work and maybe your home life to make sure that you are also just being the best person in both.
No, that's great. So I don't know if I haven't mastered this at all. So it's a constant battle because the work life is very demanding, especially if you're like decent at what you do. They're gonna want more out of you. So that's gonna obviously take away. I saw this chart once, I think it was on social media, but it had like it was a triangle. It was like work, personal, social. And it's like you could only do 2 of those at a time. Like you really only give 2. So I always say that as in mine constantly change. It may just be work and personal, individual goals I may have, or taking care of myself. It may be work and social, then I'm letting myself go, or my individual and my social life, or relationships. Those may take priority, but then the work will suffer. So it's a constant battle. I don't have a good answer. I'm still suffering it now. I started a new thing where I don't take my computer home on the weekends, which has helped out a lot, or when I go home. So I try to get everything done at work. So when I'm home, I'm home. And but yeah, it's a constant battle because once you are decent at your job, they're going to want more from you. And I'm a person where I can't say no, and that's something I need to probably a little bit more assistance on. I need a little more development in that aspect. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't really help you individually, but just understand at 17 years, I'm still battling that balance.
Thank you.
I can give you a little example. Sorry. So my wife is here right now, right? So it was just awesome, right? When you have a chances to bring your family with you to some events, do that. Because that's gonna mean a world to them, and it will make you feel better as well. There will be moments that you cannot talk to them, that you will skip so many things, and try to make it back. When we learned recently from one of the previous our conferences, from one of the, I believe it was chief of the Space Force, he said, he comes home and he just like goes for a walk with his wife. And I was like, that's so cool. And I'm like, all right, so we actually started doing that. And I would like come home. The first thing I was like, okay, let's just go for a 20-minute walk. 30. You don't talk about work and just like listen. Like, what was your day? Because you don't know if she was like at school or work or staying at home. There have been things happening, and you have a completely different mindset. Your airmen did this, or your coworkers, right? Different capacity. But like, try to listen, engage with them. Don't like just put your work in it. Have the little separation, and when you do have extra moment, try to give it back. Try to do something a little extra, spend little moments that you can, because that's going to be meaningful. Mission will always be there, right? And you will never do everything that is like, okay, next week I can fully dedicate myself. Just finding the balance. It's hard. It's never like a perfect answer, but it's definitely little moments you can to make them feel appreciated, and if you can, bring them and do explore and show them what you're doing when you also, because very often many people here will be doing the missions they cannot share if their second half is not in the military, it's not proper clearance. So you have to find the different ways how to incorporate and how to make sure that you both still one team, because that's your first team. That's I'll agree with Sergeant Missouri on that one. Like home front is your first front, and then it's Air Force, because happy wife, happy life, right? It's gonna go a long way.
Good afternoon. I'm Cadet 3rd Class Calvin Malik from CS01. My question has to do with discipline, whether that's to a superior, to a peer, or to a subordinate. Are there any times where you had to do discipline to someone and then afterwards kind of regret the way that you went about it, and then how did you remedy that?
All right, so this brings up something I don't like to talk about, so I appreciate that. As a younger NCO, there was a time that in the section I was in, there was a ton of different things going on, demands from higher level people. And I was the only one in the office at the moment. And one of my airmen came back, and he was unaware of the urgent things that were going on. And he was joking around, and I basically told him, like, I don't have time for this, but we continue to give each other crap in our office. That's how serious guys are with each other. So he kept pushing it, and I snapped, and I literally got up and was screaming at him, and it completely destroyed that relationship. I worked very hard afterward to try to rebuild it, to try to have conversations with him, and number one, apologize. When you've made a decision as a leader that was wrong, you have to own it, and I was in the wrong there for the way that I handled that. And so I apologized to him, but it destroyed that relationship for the rest of the time that he worked for me, and it's one of the regrets that I have of not handling that situation correctly. So you got to keep your head about you and take time. If you're going to respond to something that one of your subordinates have done, take time to think it through. Don't react emotionally. It doesn't work out well when you do it that way, generally.
That's the taking time and asking the right questions before giving discipline has been something I've had to learn, because sometimes discipline seems like it needs to happen right now. And there are bounds to giving discipline. You want to discipline and course correct while the issue is relevant, but I've given paperwork and had many conversations that I later regretted, because in those conversations where I'm giving paperwork or course correcting someone, I find I get their perspective, and I'm like, oh my God, actually, you don't deserve this LOC. I didn't have all the information. I was taking something I heard, you didn't show up for this mission. And so I hear from other people, so-and-so didn't show up for this mission, or they were late. And I immediately draft up the paperwork before doing any fact-finding to find out that they had a flat tire. And they were trying to call me to come help them on the side of the road, and here I am handing them paperwork when they get into work. That's horrible supervisorship. So I've really had to learn to slow down and fact-find, and if I have someone telling me LOR, Article 15, I don't have to listen to that every time. I can use my best judgment in what's going to develop that person as an individual and help their career and get them back on the right track. Is an Article 15 really going to help them, or is it going to demoralize them and drive them to separate? Is there something I can do unconventionally? Like I had an unruly, like, failure to adjust situation, and instead of giving her paperwork after paperwork after paperwork for every time she cussed out the first sergeant, instead, I was a little creative, and we would go for walks on lunch, and we would just talk about life, and we would talk about the times that I struggled to adjust. And you know, she was nervous about deploying at 19 years old. Understandable, right? So I just thought outside the box, and I pushed back on the first sergeant who was saying, you know, she was in here again. I think that's LOC worthy, and that would have been her like 6th LOC in 2 weeks. That's not gonna help. So sometimes taking time to think and discipline creatively has been really helpful for me.
Thank you.
Don't make us call you out.
Panelists, on behalf of the U.S. Air Force Academy, what did I do? And the National Character and Leadership Symposium, we'd like to thank you for joining us today with these commemorative coins. This concludes our session.